Hi, my name is Aaron, and I miss compilation albums. Now, before you freak out and say, what are you talking about? Compilation albums are readily available and released all the time. Let me be more specific. I'm not talking about the compilation albums with reissue labels where they're taking 45s, songs from 45s, and compiling them all together and featuring maybe a certain city or a genre or a scene or something like that. Those are great compilation albums that are still being released and are definitely fun to own. I'm a child of the 80s and the 90s. Mostly spent my teenage years in the 90s, and when alternative and grunge and all of that great stuff was at its peak. And oftentimes in the 90s, these compilation albums would be released that would come out of nowhere, and they would either be focused on the label or a city or a genre, or better yet, they would be sold to help fund charitable organizations. And that latter category, the one that always comes to mind for me first, is the No Alternative record, which came out in 1993. This is one of the most, to me, from the 90s, iconic covers, album covers, and it always sticks out in my mind. I bought the CD copy, and it had the boy on the cover, not the girl. This is actually a 2013 reissue that came out on Record Store Day. So the inner sleeves does feature the boy, one with that green and one with this hot pink. But I remember my CD copy being blue with the boy on the cover. And this compilation, again, was released in 1993 from an organization called the Red Hot Organization, who was a 501c3 that was dedicated to fight AIDS via pop culture. So the thing that always reminds me of the Red Hot Organization is they always had compilation albums coming out all the time, and they were usually called Red Hot and Blue or Red Hot and Dance, so usually Red Hot and something. But in 1993, they jumped on the alternative bandwagon and released No Alternative. At the time, I was 15 years old, so I don't remember this. MTV was not a favored channel in my home, but there was a TV special hosted by the Red Hot Organization on MTV, and they actually had live performances and other artists talking about information about AIDS and research and why this was an important cause for them. I don't necessarily recall that program, but the good news is there is a copy available on VHS that I do not own, but if I ever find it in a record store, I'll be sure to pick it up. A record store that sells VHS, obviously. But I actually saw a copy for like $15 on eBay, but there wasn't much fun for me in buying it off eBay when I could just maybe hopefully stumble on it one day. So there's a good chance I saw it. It's been many years since I was 15, so I tend to forget every single show I saw on TV. But I'd love to find that VHS, pop that in, and see if I recall some of those performances. Again, this was reissued on Record Store Day in 2013. Honestly, I feel like I recall ordering this like mail order, so that wouldn't make sense for Record Store Day at that time. I don't remember like specifically going out and waiting in line, to make sure I picked this up. But maybe there were two different versions or something, and I was able to get the one that was available by mail instead of Record Store Day. But let's talk about the artists that are featured on this one. This reissue is different than the CD copy that came out, which is different than the cassette copy that came out. So it kind of makes it fun, keeps things interesting. Depending on which one you own, you'll have certain songs and not others. So on this reissue, I'll just read through the artists real quick. Matthew Sweet, Buffalo Tom, Soul Asylum, Urge Overkill, American Music Club, Goo Goo Dolls, Pavement, Smashing Pumpkins, Bob Mould, Sarah McLachlan, Soundgarden, Straight Jacket Fits, Barbara Manning, The Verlaines, Uncle Tupelo, Beastie Boys, The Breeders, Sonic Youth, Jonathan Richman, and Patti Smith. Now, there's no Nirvana track on this one. And I believe the Nirvana track was always a hidden track on the CD, and they did verse, chorus, verse. That's one of those weird things that when I think about CDs, those hidden tracks, when you'd get to say song 10 and it would play the song and then it would just keep going and you just have to sit there and wait. And, maybe you could like hit the little button, and it would sort of skim across to whatever this thing that was going to be played, the mystery song or whatever they had put on there. I can't recall in the CD if it was that or if it was just an extra, uncredited, like, song 12 or something that popped up and Nirvana came on, or if you had to kind of wait until it played. But that's one of those weird things that you obviously aren't going to get on an LP. There's just not enough space. But that's kind of one of those fun things to recall about CDs if you want to have positive memories about CDs, which I do. But so let's talk a little bit about the songs on here. A lot of these are to me are like B-sides or maybe extra songs that they were able to donate to this cause. I'm not sure if maybe some of the artists had written some specifically for this, but it felt like a lot of like extra tracks that they were able to donate to this and put together and make an album out of it. Now, there are a few covers on this. The Goo Goo Dolls cover the Rolling Stones, and Uncle Tupelo covers Creedence Clearwater Revival's Effigy. Now, the standout cover on this, and when I say standout, it's not because it's my favorite. Soul Asylum covers Sexual Healing. Now, I will leave it up to you to decide whether or not you're a fan of the track. But for me, it's not necessarily one of my favorite Soul Asylum performances. But again, go check it out and let me know what you think in the comments. I'll just say it's usually a song I skip over. But anyway, also, so some of my favorite songs on here, I love the Soundgarden song, love the Beastie Boys song, love the Breeders song. Probably one of my favorites is the Pavement song, Unseen Power of the Picket Fence, where they basically in the first line call out REM. And it seems funny that the scenes were so big, the alternative and grunge scene was so big in the 90s that you could just call out bands, like I don't know that rock bands really do that much anymore, but at that time it was kind of a thing for them to have, spats and talk about each other on record. But yeah, Pavement really goes after REM on this song. And this actually is available on Spotify, sort of. You can find the album there, but a lot of the songs are grayed out, so you can only listen to a handful. One of the ones you can listen to is the Pavement song, and it has the most streams on this release on Spotify than any of the other songs. So they sort of take a good shot at REM. I would assume it's all in good fun, but it's kind of a fun thing to listen to. I'm a big REM fan too, and Pavement fan. So for me, I'm not going to choose a side, especially this many years later, but it's a fun song to listen to on this one. Now, if you have the CD copy, I believe, like I said earlier, the hidden track was the Nirvana song. If you had the cassette copy, there was a Sonic Youth song and a Jonathan Richman song that were not available on the CD copy. I believe that's correct. But the Sonic Youth and Jonathan Richman songs are both included on this reissue, but as I mentioned earlier, no Nirvana track. So what I was saying earlier about missing compilation albums, growing up in the 90s, these were so common. I think of the Sweet Relief Victoria Williams compilation that I don't believe has ever been pressed on vinyl. I think about the DGC compilation, which was all the bands on the David Geffen label at that time. And I remember going into the record store in the mall, I don't know, Sam Goody, Camelot, something like that, and they having a cassette copy of Epitaph's Punkorama Volume 1 for 99 cents, and I bought it just because I'd heard of the bands but never actually heard the bands. So you're thinking early Rancid, early Offspring, early Bad Religion, early bands of that era. And that actually introduced me, for 99 cents, that introduced me to a whole other segment of music that I was just not familiar with growing up in the South and hearing all these great West Coast bands that at that time also didn't get a lot of airplay on MTV, which was kind of how, those of us without a great radio station near us were sort of force-fed. A lot of alternative and grunge stuff was by watching MTV or 120 minutes staying up late, that sort of stuff. So It was always cool to find these compilations. I felt like when new labels started, especially indie labels, they would release a compilation with all their bands, and then you would buy it because you'd want to hear a song from your favorite band and then be introduced to all those other ones as well. So there's probably a good chance there are no alternative compilations like this still being released, and I have completely overlooked them. So if you know of any and are a fan of any, please let me know in the comments. I would love to check them out. I just feel like in today's streaming world that you could just make a playlist easier than you could make a compilation. So, but I'm sure that there are probably people out there, still releasing albums that help go to a great cause like this did for the Red Hot organization, and I've overlooked them. So like I said, please let me know in the comments. In the meantime, I love the packaging on this record. I listened to it a little bit last night, and I'm looking forward to listening to it again tonight.